The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. Amanda Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast on hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want bizonged leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, I want to start by giving you, my friend, a very special birthday. Excelsior!
Well, thank you very much, my friend. Yes, I turned 52 this past weekend, and I did it surrounded by the Defenders, actually, and other Bronze Age Marvel comics. I turned 52 while signing at the Harrisburg Comic Con. Not the greatest birthday, but not the worst either. So
good. Well, I guess that's all we can hope for, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, we can hope for the best one, but
I bought myself some birthday presents. I bought some Champions back issues and some Defenders back issues that I needed. And I was given by a retailer friend of mine, I was given a near mint condition Howard the Duck #1. It's a $100 book, and was given it for my birthday. So that was very cool.
That was very kind. That was very kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should all have such friends.
We should.
I don't know, Brian. Are you like me? Do you have an Amazon wish list, and you're the only one who ever buys anything from it?
I used to have an Amazon wish list, and then the public discovered it, and I then went ahead and got rid of my wish list.
Oh, because people were sending you things?
People were sending me things, and I never want to take advantage of my public and my fans in that manner. So
see, I was more talking about my family than anybody else, you know.
My family doesn't buy me shit. They don't care about me.
It was your birthday. I'm sure that you got presents.
No, I did. Dungeon Master, my 11-year-old, listeners to the horror show with Brian Keene will be familiar with him. Him and his mother, the two of them had a nice little birthday party for me. They made me a cake and they got me some presents. And my ex-wife made me meatloaf and sinful mashed potatoes, her two specialties, my favorite meal. So that was really nice. And my mother sent me a card. So, but other than that, it was pretty quiet. I mean, there was a great outpouring on social media, as there always is. But it was pretty quiet otherwise.
Well, we have a gift for you today, which is Black Goliath. The gift of Black Goliath is what you get today. Because he certainly is my favorite part of the story that I intend to lovingly mock today. And before I do that, I will say, as an aside, I've been reading the trade paperbacks of Marvel's recent War of the Realms giant crossover story, which, if you're unfamiliar, involves Malekith, the evil, what is he? The dark elf. You know, he's the king of the dark elves, leading a joint invasion of Earth by all the sort of evil forces of the 9 realms, the 10 realms, as they say in Marvel. And sort of, Earth's champions, fighting back. And today I happened to read a one-shot of Marvel Strike Force written by a guy named Tom Taylor. Now, I don't know that I've seen his name a bunch of times because he's getting out there, but I don't know that I've previously read anything by Tom Taylor.
Right.
And it's basically from Spider-Man's point of view, and it's Spider-Man, Captain America, Power Man, Iron Fist, and I'm missing somebody, going into Utgard, into Jotunheim, the land of the Frost Giants, to rescue Thor.
Right.
They ride a bunch of Pegasi, if that's the word, Pegasuses. Spider-Man ends up being able to magically talk to the Pegasuses, or to one of them. And it's a great story. His Spider-Man is note perfect, and it feels so much like the great stuff that we keep going back to. It feels like a story that fits with the kinds of things we cover on this show. So I just wanted to mention that, and a shout out to Tom Taylor, who I don't know, but just a really fun story.
Well, that's great to hear. I no disrespect intended to either of them. Well, actually, they've both been dicks to me. So, yeah, full disrespect intended to both of them. I was not a fan of Dan Slott or Nick Spencer's takes on Spider-Man. So I for one would welcome seeing Tom Taylor's take on it. I'll have to look for that and pick it up.
I confess I particularly do enjoy Dan Slott's take. And I met him at Boston Comic-Con recently, and he was pleasant enough to me. I don't know him, so maybe that's
you didn't bring me up, obviously.
Maybe that's clearly not. Although I did mention the show, so who knows?
Well, hello, Dan, if you're listening. You still have me blocked on Twitter.
That's hysterical. Oh, we need to talk about at another point, and probably not on the show, although I'm happy to, is this, can't even think of the name of it right now, this company that owns Youngblood now. That's a whole other company.
Oh, Terrific Productions, yes. LLC.
I've loved seeing your war with that guy, Andrew Rev. I mean,
tune in to the October 3rd episode of The Horror Show with Brian Keene. It's going to be all about the history of Andrew Rev and Comic Co. and now his new venture.
I'm so excited for
his
that episode.
His wars with everybody from, Bleeding Cool's Jude Terror to Rob Liefeld and Eric Larson.
And Bill Willingham.
It's an investigative story. We've been working on it for about a month and a half. And we'll have the full report on next week's episode of The Horror Show.
Well, all I have to say is, for people who want to argue that the comics industry has grown up, all we need to do is look at this clown. I mean, just the things that he says and gets away with, and, it just boggles my mind. But in any case, the champions, my friend.
No, because I have to say, he's enough of a chode that he actually brought together far left progressive comics Twitter and far right Comicsgate Twitter together in this uber prank in which Mark Lombardi tries to sell Andrew Rev the rights to Ethan Van Sciver's Cyberfrog. And for one brief, glorious hour, everybody forgot their politics and forgot their issues and just joined together in laughing at this ass clown. And it was glorious. And then, of course, everybody went back to the way they were. But
he is, I'm just astonished at the fact that I just don't know how a guy like that gets his hands on money, but okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just, the whole thing about, hey, submit your artwork to us and we own it all. Out there publicly, like if it's one thing if you send that in an email, okay, maybe you won't get called out, but if you're going to post it on Twitter. Anyway,
let's talk about the Champions issue 12. Bill Mantlo, of course, we have the classic champions team now. Bill Mantlo is writer, John Byrne is artist, Bob Layton is the inker, and Archie Goodwin is editor. And Archie Goodwin was my editor or wait, no, he was not. Was he? Who edited my Doom Patrol? No, it was Al Milgram edited.
Al Milgram.
Al Milgram edited.
Archie Goodwin being, I think, the sort of legendary editor of this period. Archie and Ralph Macchio and that crew. Obviously, Shooter. I have to say, I love this cover. So I hope you'll put that on YouTube.
Absolutely.
This cover of the Stranger blasting Hercules and Angel and the Black Widow with the Soul Gem, which viewers of MCU movies would know as the Soul Stone. But yeah, really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, we open on a splash page, picks up right where issue 11 left off. Stilt-Man and Black Goliath engaged in heavy, heavy battle. Now,
I love that you say that with like a straight face.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, we talked on last week's show about your thoughts on the character of Stilt-Man. Would you like to recap that for the listening audience?
So yeah, just to restate, Stilt-Man is ridiculous. Not only so, it's a guy in a sort of armored suit, and his whole power is that the legs of the armor suit extend nigh indefinitely. And in this particular image, you have Black Goliath fighting Stilt-Man. But let me just point something out to you, Brian. Again, I love John Byrne as an artist, but particularly in this era, I liked his art better then than I do now. But Black Goliath grows like anyone with the Pym particles. When he grows, his head does not stay the same size.
Right, correct.
But Stilt-Man is a guy in a suit of armor. So roughly Iron Man with a strange hood around his head, whose legs will extend. But somehow, right here, he's the size of Giant Man.
Well, there is now. I can get a no prize for this because, yes, Stilt-Man. We think of his legs, and that's what the artist most usually draws. But in fact, his entire costume is a hydraulic exoskeleton.
No.
So his arms. Oh yes, his arms extend. His head can extend. He is normal human size inside that armor, but the armor itself can grow.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean. Wait, the armor itself can grow, so like he can start as the size of a human and then be Iron Giant?
The armor can. Inside the armor, the man inside the armor, as we find out in Frank Miller's Daredevil run, when Turk steals the Stilt-Man costume, the pilot, it's like in anime, these giant robots, but the pilot inside stays the same size. That's what the Stilt-Man armor is. So
wait a second. The way I've always understood it is that, the arms can extend and the legs can extend, and fine if you want to say that the neck of the armor can extend, but you're saying that the armor itself can grow like what, Jaguar or something.
Well, it can extend as well. He says after that gorgeous double page spread, he says, my entire hydraulic exoskeleton is a weapon. So I took this to mean that he grew the head as well, which, tactically is kind of dumb because it gives Black Goliath a bigger target to hit. But it makes it easier for John Byrne to draw as well. Yeah,
okay. I mean, all right, we'll move along. I'm not persuaded yet. I'm happy to be proven wrong here, but we shall see. Suffice to say that this double page spread, regardless of my disbelief about Stilt-Man's growing abilities, the double page spread on pages 2 and 3 of this are fantastic.
Oh yes.
It is. This is where you went, wow, John Byrne can draw.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's Black Widow piloting the champion's craft, the Sky Car, or whatever it is, with Ghost Rider riding along as Hercules jumps out. Darkstar and Angel fly out. Iceman's on his ice sled or whatever. And they're all attacking Stilt-Man. This is the champions right here.
Yep. And I want to point something out.
It's just a shame that Stilt-Man is the villain in this spread. But go ahead.
I was talking with a young creator at Harrisburg Comic Con this past weekend, and he wants to turn his novel into a graphic novel, and he was asking for advice. And I was explaining to him the economy of words. What we have here is classic Bronze Age storytelling, where with that giant double-page spread, Mantlo and Byrne tell us everything we need to know. If we've never read the Champions before, we learn everything we need to know. In just a few word balloons of dialogue, we learn which each character is, what their history is, that Black Goliath saved them last issue. Hercules is going to repay it. It reads very cheesy, but my God, it was effective.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. It's great. And you can't, and it adds, interestingly enough, giving them all something to say, although ridiculous in real time.
Right.
It adds a sense of motion, So if you took
Yep.
all of this away, it's a moment in time, right? It's a snapshot.
Right.
But
Right. And it even tells us what Stilt-Man's powers is. It's not just that she can get really, really tall. It's that he has a gun called the Z-Ray, and Black Goliath is very concerned about this.
Yeah.
And that becomes our plot point. It becomes one of our MacGuffins this issue.
Yeah, exactly. Along with the fact that, like so many other characters in this era of comics, we don't know what Stilt-Man's powers really are.
That's right. That's right. But we know that the Z-Ray is important, and
Correct.
when he drops it, he goes to retrieve it, but before he can, Darkstar gets an opportunity to remind the readers of what her powers are. And she echoes what you just said, Chris. She says, while even I do not understand why the Dark Force serve me it does. Well, as she makes the dreaded Z-Ray disappear.
There you go. And there you go. So much for your weapon there, Stilt-Man. Woman, know that it took me months to devise that gun. Months of pain while I rotted behind bars, lost in a second. And I love Darkstar's response, Brian. He is growing before my eyes. Which again, it's like, yeah, well, he's just explained to you in the splash page or in the previous page, that's his power. He can make his hydraulic legs extend. Because he's the dreaded Stilt-Man, the guy on stilts who can make his hydraulic legs extend.
We transitioned down to the street
stupid
level.
Character. Go ahead.
You know what? But I Frank Miller made me a Stilt-Man fan. That run on Daredevil. I always loved Turk. Turk was just he's the Jack Norris of Daredevil.
Yes.
And I love the hijinks he'd get up to. And when he stole the Stilt-Man armor, I think that is the best part of Frank Miller's iconic run on Daredevil is Turk running around the Stilt-Man.
You know what I love about Turk? This is a tangent, FYI, a brief tangent. One of my favorite and woefully forgotten action movies of the 80s is the legendary, the immortal Carl Weathers in Action Jackson.
Oh, hell yes.
And the scene where the two cops are driving along and they see the guy run along the sidewalk and one cop turns to the other and says, he should just be wearing a t-shirt that says, I steal shit. That's Turk. In my mind, I always think Turk is this guy who's like, you could say whatever you want, Turk, but we know you're up to no good. And yet somehow it's charming. Like somehow Daredevil knows Turk is like going to steal everything he can get his hands on, but finds him charming nevertheless.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly. So yeah, we transitioned down to Street View. You'll remember on last week's episode, a mysterious figure showed up looking for Black Goliath with a mysterious box that Black Goliath was very concerned about. We see now that she's a woman, and she's sneaking into Champions headquarters. And we see that we then transition back to the Champions, still fooling around with Stilt-Man. Several pages now, and Stilt-Man's giving them a run for their money here, Chris.
Bobby Drake, Iceman, is pole dancing on this page. Hercules finally decides, this guy is on really high stilts. Maybe I should knock one of them out from under him. And he manages to knock down Stilt-Man. Then Black Goliath uses that same ice pole to slide down. There's a Jack and the Beanstalk element here that I appreciated.
Yes.
And then Stilt-Man just looks sad and ridiculous as he's retracting his stilts, and he looks beaten. Must stall, he thinks. Get them into position.
And he does. And then he uses his hydraulic lifts to catch Black Goliath and Hercules off guard, and he attempts to, quote, smash them into oblivion.
I'm sorry. When the Stilt-Man strikes, Stilt-Man is holding them off, Ghost Rider says. How? Black Widow says, by turning their own overconfidence against our own confidence against us, Johnny. So the Angel goes in for an attack. He gets smashed and falls into Hercules' arms. And then finally, Ghost Rider decides to use his Hellfire to heat the pavement so that Stilt-Man's legs sink into the pavement and get stuck. Now, this is a good idea, Brian.
It is. And, we're on what, issue 12?
Yeah.
Every issue, it has come down to Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, to save the day. He really has become the Doctor Strange of this book. In the Defenders, we did the entire run of the Defenders on this show, and it always comes down to Doctor Strange waving his hands to defeat the bad guy. And we're starting to see the same thing here. Ghost Rider saves the day, except he doesn't, because Stilt-Man even outdoes him.
But in a way that's really stupid. So Stilt-Man, he's foreseen the fact that his feet might get stuck, and he's able to disconnect the upper part of his stilt legs from the lower part of his stilt legs. People, if you're listening and you haven't read this, we are not making this shit up.
And my favorite silly part.
He extends and he simply walks away, Brian.
Well, and you gotta do the word balloon, because Iceman says gone. He just walked off, covering miles in a single step.
Yes. And there wasn't a thing we could have done to stop him, except, some of you can fly. Some of you can use ice bridges to make your way around the city.
Some of you have a motorcycle made of hellfire.
I mean, again, the idea, the only character currently in the Champions that it should have taken more than 30 seconds to defeat Stilt-Man is Black Widow. I'm sorry, an Angel. Right?
Yeah.
But Iceman, Ghost Rider, Hercules, Darkstar, Black Goliath, all of them should have been able to defeat Stilt-Man in 30 seconds or less. Yes. Or your pizza is free.
And Black Goliath has heard your challenge, Christopher, because he then charges off after Stilt-Man, abandoning the rest of the Champions, who then go inside their headquarters. And what do they find waiting for them?
They find a strange woman who has now had a conversation with Black Widow. It turns out that she is the person Stilt-Man is after. And rather, Black Widow says, he was after the box Miss Claiborne was carrying.
A glowing box.
Yes.
That we find out her boyfriend, Jerry, stole from Tony Stark. He stole it from Stark Industries.
Stark Industries has the worst fucking security of any. I mean, literally anyone could steal some. Turk could have taken the entire Stark Industries. Their security is just the worst.
Absolutely.
But
Hey, Chris,
Jerry has stolen the glowing box.
Hey, Chris, the UPS driver showed up. I have to go sign. I'll be right back.
Do
Please continue.
I will continue to tell the tale. Excuse me. Of Ms. Claiborne, her boyfriend Jerry, and the glowing box stolen from Stark Industries. So there's a strange glow surrounding the box. Hercules wants to contact Tony Stark to tell him, but all of a sudden, by Helios' chariot, the inner wall doth burn with the light of the sun. Not quite, but there is something burning through the wall, and it's the stranger. Now, I'm sure Brian is going to have thoughts and comments about the stranger, but for the moment, let's just say that he has been a thorn in the side of the Avengers, and he says that they now, the champions, possess a device of his creation, a bomb capable of destroying the entire star system.
I never cared for the stranger.
I'm surprised to hear that. The stranger seems like a character you would like.
Nah, I never cared for the stranger.
Is it his facial hair you don't like?
More of his costume choices. Okay. I guess we should talk about this because we're going to get into it with this story arc. But, Marvel has a number of elders of the universe, Eternity and all the other ones we've talked about on the show before. We focused a lot on Eternity when we were talking about the Defenders. And a lot of the elders of the universe, I never cared for any. I liked Galactus.
Yep.
And I liked the original Beyonder. I didn't so much like him when he came to Earth and took human form and wore a disco outfit. But yeah, I don't know. The elders of the universe always left me just feeling flat.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's the Collector. There's the Stranger. Right. We could go through and look at the list of them. I think the In-Betweener is one of them. I'm not sure.
Yes. Yep.
So we'd have to look. Some of them have really stupid names, clearly. Conceptually, I like the Stranger. And, I don't have an issue with him, except that when you bring in these characters that don't seem to have much detail, or their stories are so distant from our characters. Like, what is the Stranger even doing in this story?
Right. Well, we find out because it turns out what the glowing box contained a Null Bomb. Now, for those of you who are new to Marvel continuity, a Null Bomb is basically a bomb that expands and expands and expands. It can expand over the entire Earth. It can expand over the entire solar system if you want it to. Eventually, when it reaches maximum size, it then contracts and destroys everything inside that force field. What Tony Stark was doing with this, I don't know, but that's what's inside the box.
Isn't it interesting how so many of these concepts feel like metaphors for our current political situation? Anyway, moving on. The Null Bomb. So basically, they try to defend themselves against the Stranger. But what Ghost Rider is having an issue with, Johnny Blaze is trying to decide, hey, wait, when danger is present, I transform into the Ghost Rider. But I haven't transformed. Does that mean the Stranger isn't lying? Is he really here to save the solar system?
That's right.
But it's when the Stranger is fighting back against Black Widow, and Johnny Blaze is accidentally caught in that blast, that he does change into the Ghost Rider.
Exactly. Now, we should mention, while this battle is taking place, Mantlo and Byrne do a real neat trick here that you can only do in comics. While this battle is taking place, juxtaposed against it on a television screen in the background is Black Goliath versus Stilt-Man in downtown Los Angeles.
Right. Which frankly, I believe that's because the Black Goliath versus Stilt-Man story is one we will revisit when we do the 5-issue Black Goliath series.
Exactly.
Because I believe that the rest of that takes place in his own title.
Right.
And thank God, Brian, because there's nothing I want more than to spend more time talking about the Stilt-Man. I don't know what I would do without the Stilt-Man.
He's not gone from this issue, but Johnny Blaze finally lashes out at the stranger, and the stranger levitates him and tosses him out the skyscraper window.
And then, pardon me, our hapless heroine yells, "This is all Jerry's fault. If he hadn't kept the box, something's coming out of it." Something in the box has started to glow.
That's right.
The battle continues,
Darkstar,
and the thing in the box, Brian, begins to absorb everything around it, as you described.
Exactly. Darkstar saves Ghost Rider, and we get a nice juxtaposition with Hercules pulling off this giant metallic pillar to hit the stranger with, juxtaposed with Black Goliath pulling off one of Stilt-Man's legs and beating him with it.
Right. Well, it's about damn time. I mean, thank you, Black Goliath. Anyway, all right. So
yeah. So what is her name? Because I went to sign for UPS.
Yes. Well, I've lost track now.
Whatever her name is,
yes.
Jerry's girlfriend is getting sucked into the Null Bomb.
Yeah.
And then the stranger,
name is Ms. Claiborne.
Right.
Reggie Claiborne, her name is.
Reggie Claiborne. The stranger, he says, "We're all doomed." And juxtaposed with the stranger clutching Angel in his fist, we see Black Goliath clutching Stilt-Man's helmet in his fist.
With one hand while he punches Stilt-Man in the face with the other.
Yeah.
Clearly that fight is now over, which I appreciate.
Right.
Because as I said, any one of them should have been able to defeat the Stilt-Man.
That's right. The stranger, he then takes the time to recap the history of the Null Bomb, as I already did, to the champions as he's getting sucked into it. And as he disappears inside, he says that he can slow the bomb's growth from within if the 6 of them do something. But before he can tell them what it is, he gets sucked inside and he sends them hurtling across the universe.
Yes. So the bomb has been here on Earth, inert, for quite some time. And he explains, we get flashbacks to Adam Warlock, the soul gem that Adam Warlock had, the mysterious
Silver Surfer,
Gardeners, Spider-Man. And when I read this flashback description, it reminded me again about how much I loved Marvel Team Up, because you got just weird stories constantly in that series.
Exactly.
Stories that wouldn't happen anywhere else, which I always loved.
Do you remember, and we're getting off track, but do you remember the Project Pegasus saga in Marvel 2-in-1?
Of course.
Still one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely cover that eventually. Project Pegasus and Marvel 2-in-1. And one of the things that I loved so much about Marvel Team Up is the consistent references to the... Oh, actually, was it? I think it was in 2-in-1, yeah. The card game that Nick Fury and Ben Grimm are part of.
Oh, yes.
And I think Shang-Chi even plays cards with them at one point.
Yep.
I love all that just weirdness. In Marvel Team Up, the thing of Doctor Doom's time machine, time platform. When they go back and they fight Cotton Mather. It's Spider-Man in the Salem Witch Trials.
Yep, that was great stuff.
So good.
In fact, that was my first issue of Marvel Team Up, believe it or not.
Oh, there you go. So you were, that was it. You were hooked.
Yep. Well, speaking of being sent across time and space, the champions, while the Null Bomb breaks out the roof of their headquarters and begins to suck up Los Angeles, the champions materialize somewhere else, across the universe, as the Beatles would say. And Hercules recognizes the beastly foes about to attack them. Who do those foes belong to, Chris? Who do they serve?
They serve Camo Tharn. Ooh, I've never heard of before.
Who I feel about the way you feel about Stilt-Man.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, cursed though I be with blindness, well do I know that voice, says Camo Tharn. It is he, my subjects, he who stole my life, my rune staff, which refers to Thor number 235.
Right.
Now,
I should give us a brief, and I mean brief, history of this because it does impact Champions issue 13, which we're going to get to in a moment. Camo Tharn, who has a really stupid name, he's another one of the Elders of the Universe, just like the Stranger. He was known as the Possessor. Basically, he was a librarian. He gathered all the universe's knowledge. If you want the DC equivalent, perhaps think of Destiny, from Sandman's Endless. He gets this thing called the Rune Staff, and he begins to experiment with it with reckless abandon. The Rune Staff, it's kind of like an Infinity Gauntlet. It can do all kinds of things. Particularly, it can manipulate life forces. It also, and this is important, has a limbo-like pocket dimension inside of itself. So the staff is much like Devil Slayer's cloak from the Defenders. Hercules, as we'll find out in issue 13, has fought Camo Tharn before, specifically when Jane Foster lies at death's door. Sif from Asgard and Hercules take on Camo Tharn, and they steal the Rune Staff to save Jane Foster. So I'm going to give you a spoiler for issue 13 right now, and then we're going to get into issue 13. The Stranger has sent them across the universe to get the Rune Staff, but if he had just had a conversation with Hercules, he'd know that the Rune Staff is back on fucking Earth.
All right. Well, as much as we may not be fans necessarily of this story, I'm enjoying all this nonsense. Honestly.
Oh, I know. I love this. This is glorious 70s comics.
Yes, it is. I think it's absolutely worth the read. I'm really enjoying it. And to top, as much as like Camo Tharn is stupid and you don't like the Stranger and I can't stand Stilt-Man, it's still really fun.
Yeah.
And the best part now is we turn the page and the cover to Champions 13 is not as good as 12, but again, like this is a memorable cover. And then
that's Dave Cockrum and Al Milgrom, I believe.
Which makes total sense. And then again, Mantlo, Byrne, Layton, and a beautiful splash page to open with Black Goliath standing on the ground, looking up, basically wondering, what is that thing growing out of the Champions skyscraper, and where are the champions? It's a great shot, and it's a good question, my friend, Black Goliath.
That's right. He then begins to climb the Champion skyscraper. He even references King Kong. Now, this issue would have come out in 1976. What else came out in 1976, Chris?
Oh, the
Dino De Laurentiis remake of King Kong. Remember that?
Yeah, with Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange, Dino De Laurentiis produced version of King Kong, which I don't really remember much of. I saw it when it first came out, but I don't really remember it.
I went back and revisited that film because Dungeon Master is a very big fan of the original black and white King Kong.
Yeah.
And he also enjoyed the recent one with Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson and Loki. But we went back and revisited the 76 remake. Boy, does it not hold up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a shame.
It looked much cooler when we were kids than it does as an adult.
Yeah.
Anyway, Black Goliath,
yes.
He makes that reference as he climbs the building. And then he gets sucked into the Null Bomb.
There you go. And we cut away across the universe, Brian, where the champions have just arrived and they are facing Camo Tharn, your favorite character. And Hercules explains, oh shit, that's not what he says. He says, Zeus cursed the stranger's haste. The rune staff must be the object he sent us here to obtain, but it is already on Earth. And he explains what Brian just explained. And then the fight starts. Chemotharn has a bunch of ape creatures.
Yeah, beastmen, he calls them.
Interstellar beastmen, basically.
Yeah. And I don't know that we need to recap that entire fight. Lots of punching.
No, but we do need to mention my favorite part of this fight, Brian, because it's the best part of this issue. One of the beastmen has grabbed Ghost Rider from behind and is crushing him. And Ghost Rider fights back by giving him a reverse headbutt with his flaming skull, which sets the Beastman's face on fire. Come on, this issue is worth reading just for that.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. That is awesome. And then Darkstar, she holds the portal that they traveled here through. She holds it open with her powers, and she gets sucked through it. And then Bobby, as we've talked about during our Defenders run and now with the Champions, Bobby overcompensates and immediately flings himself through the portal after her.
Thinking, well, and this is the thing, again, like, let's look at this. Bobby Drake, he thinks that she has not done this on purpose. He assumes that she has been sucked in there and that she can't hold her own. So he has to go after her, even though Darkstar is, inarguably more powerful than Iceman. He dives through into this, and he gets trapped in between. Yeah.
We then transition, because Camo Tharn has the champion surrounded, but we transition inside the Null Bomb, and this is my favorite panel of the issue, Chris.
Yeah.
Regina Claiborne explains everything, not only to Black Goliath, but to the reader with this summation. We're all inside that bomb my boyfriend Willie stole from Tony Stark. The stranger says it's going to swallow the world, and then it'll contract and crush everything.
Yeah. Well, and my favorite part about this is that apparently Regina Claiborne has two boyfriends who stole this thing from Tony Stark. One named Jerry in the last issue, and one named Willie in this issue.
Yep.
So, Archie Goodwin.
We want our retroactive no prizes, Archie.
Exactly. So Regina is in a polyamorous relationship with two guys who stole this thing together, and that is, we want our no prize. There
we go. The bomb is apparently sentient because it begins to build robots to fight Black Goliath.
Which honestly, Brian, this is the thing that I am most grateful to Bill Mantlo for in this issue, because deciding that the bomb can defend itself by building these robots allows us to have, some time, a couple pages of Black Goliath fighting a bunch of robots.
Right.
I mean, I want to see Bill Foster in action, and since there were only 5 issues of his series, this is good.
That's right. We then transition to Darkstar and Bobby hurtling through space. She's in a black sphere, and he's in a white sphere made out of ice that he's fashioned around himself. And it's not looking good for Bobby. It's not looking good for him. But their fate is unknown to the rest of their teammates that they've left behind.
Yeah, the battle continues to rage. It's boring me now. Molten rock is pouring down on Hercules, and Hercules is still fighting. And something becomes of that molten rock, Brian. And would you please do me the honor of reading that Hercules balloon there?
Madness doth reign. The rock itself doth move, comes to life, huge, like some flame-crested titan of old. Come thee on, monster, thou wilt find thy nemesis in the son of Zeus.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like that should be the opening of the show every episode.
Right now, I'm working on a Thor audio series.
Yeah.
It's in conjunction with Marvel and Serial Box. I want to pitch them a Hercules audio series when we're done, and I wanna apply not only as the writer but as the voice actor doing Hercules.
I think that is only right. That is only right. I think you should. But and again, like this issue, as much as it's like fighting for fighting's sake, there's not really a lot of plot going on here. I love this. I love seeing these characters in action. I love the next page where we see the giant flaming fist of this huge molten lava monster, like coming down, smashing into the ground between Hercules and Ghost Rider.
Yep.
Just the fact that you have this thing where Hercules and the Ghost Rider are teaming up to fight this giant molten lava monster. It's, again, like, to me, that's the joy of the comics of this era. Over time, the characters tended to be streamlined more. So even now, if Hercules and the Ghost Rider appeared together in the modern day Avengers, it's the Ghost Rider who's got a metal head instead of a skull head to make him a little less supernaturally. And you'd have Hercules probably not in this costume, looking a little bit less like a god out of Greek myth, looking more science fiction. And so that disconnect, the discordant visual of the two of them together is lessened. And that takes some of the pleasure out of it for me.
I agree. Speaking of pleasure, probably my favorite story beat with Black Widow for several of the past issues. The next page, we get one of those Bronze Age Marvel introspective scenes where the fight is going on, but the character still has time to stop and reflect. And she's thinking to herself, the Ghost Rider might be dead. Iceman and Darkstar might be dead as well. She's watching Angel be bested by a flying gargoyle, and she's questioning her leadership of the champion. She lashes out to try to stop the gargoyle, but it swings her up face first into a mountain. And at that point, we get some really interesting character work here with Johnny Blaze.
Yeah.
Because seeing the Widow hurt, he goes full Zarathos. Now, we haven't, we talked about during his stint with the Defenders, we talked about the demon that possesses him, Zarathos. He lets the demon fully take over. And the caption even says, there comes a time when there's just no use for the things men call words. And you just see an enraged Ghost Rider.
He's burned through his costume. He's literally just a flaming skeleton with pants at this point.
Yep.
Which, is my goal in life. As opposed to Snigoski, who generally would be a flaming skeleton with no pants, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, so the battle continues. Now, the stranger says, by the mysteries that rule us all, the portal I opened for the humans begins to shimmer. So what's happening here, Brian, is that Darkstar has used the Dark Force, or the Dark Force has used her as a vehicle, as she implies here, to essentially break herself and Iceman inside the limbo realm of the Null Bomb, which is weird because it seems to me you'd want to escape that. But she's there to give him information. She is.
And Bobby, he makes a big show of, hey, look what I did for you. And she completely ignores him, doesn't even acknowledge his presence. She goes up to the stranger and, honestly, at this point, I had checked out. But she says, the fuck does she say? Oh, the rune staff.
So basically, first I will say that the Null Bomb's programming has told it has no further need for internal defense, which is the handy way from Mantlo to get rid of the robots that Black Goliath has been fighting.
That's it.
And somehow, some way, the Null Bomb had preoccupied the stranger, which he admits he would have known immediately if he hadn't been so preoccupied. maybe looking at Facebook on his phone at the time or something.
Right.
That the rune staff was on Earth. He uses his powers to change the little portal to open into the room in a broom closet.
A broom closet
in a New York City hospital where the rune
is,
staff is stored.
Yeah, now that hospital, of course, at this point in Marvel history, Thor has a human secret identity as Dr. Donald Blake. So I guess he just kept all these Asgardian weapons in the broom closet.
As you do. He just like stuck it in there and said, nah, I'll come back for this. But then so Darkstar gets her hands on the rune staff, and then the Stranger basically says, you have the power to wield it. He sort of feeds into her his own soul gem power. And Angel, back on the other planet, realizes that all of this, as so often happens, all of what we have described has been happening in the minds of the champions, which is implied in the artwork, but we conveniently left out. So, in fact, Angel breaks through thanks to the training of Professor X, and realizes that all of what they've seen is illusion. And Angel beats the living shit out of Camo Tharn. So he's your avatar here, Brian.
That's right. So he does that, and the champions win the day, but how can they return to Earth? And indeed, is there an Earth to return to? Well, we find out there will be, because, Darkstar continuing to wield the rune staff. She doesn't understand what she's doing. And the Stranger explains it to her. He says, you're adding the power of the staff to the bomb, forcing its growth. The bomb's danger lies not in expansion, but in the moment when it contracts, crushing everything inside it. She's pushing it to grow, driving it beyond the galaxy, driving the bomb itself mad. It will continue to expand forever on into that great nothingness that is the cosmic all.
Now, I love the fact that this is left dangling. And I don't know if anybody had ever followed up on that with Marvel, but
they have not. And you and I could, except that you told Dan Slott about the show. So now he's listening, and he's going to do it before we get a chance.
Well, you know what? If Dan Slott is listening to the show, which I sincerely doubt, but if he is, I really hope that he does this, because how many times have we given a shout out to Cullen Bunn with our emphatic suggestions? Because Cullen should just do what we tell him, but he doesn't.
Cullen does in fact listen every week, and you know who else listens every week?
Who's that?
Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. And in fact, Mr. DeMatteis has had the goodwill to be on this show. Yeah. He's the only, other than Scott Edelman, he's the only guest we've had on this show. But I would think between Scott and Keith and J.M. DeMatteis and Cullen, somebody could pitch this storyline.
I agree. Well, in any case, and then they'd have to bring these characters specifically back together.
That's right.
To combat this threat, because they were there at the time, and somehow the universe demands that's how the Defenders always get back together,
That's right.
In any case, we wrap up. The Stranger says, the danger is past. Farewell, young one. You have taught me much about the human thing called courage. He's speaking to Reggie, of course. The champions are returned home. And Johnny Blaze is thinking home. Yes, maybe it is at that, which is a new thought for him because he's such a, rambling man.
Well, and he's also struggling with the fact that he thinks he might be in love with the Black Widow.
Yeah, well, which I would read that book.
Yeah, so, he's wondering if he's in love with the Black Widow and Hercules. He who is both man and God wonders, can he truly share in belonging with this surrogate family?
Yeah. Now, Brian, in our next episode, I must say, this is, I think, number 14, I think might be my favorite issue of the Champions. And I'm just looking ahead to see. Yes, I'm sorry, 14 and 15. My favorite Champions story, bar none, because it introduces the creature called Swarm.
That's right. If you are a fan of 70s and 80s munch-out horror, think The Rats by James Herbert or the Killer Crabs books by Guy N. Smith, then you definitely want to be here next week, folks.
And honestly, this is a character that I would love to see, unironically, appear with awesome effects in the MCU.
Absolutely.
And mock me, listeners, if you will, but I friggin' love Swarm. Anyway. On that note,
in the meantime, folks, if you enjoyed this episode, let our network know. Go to projectentertainmentnetwork.com. Click Defenders Dialogue, and you'll see T-shirts, you'll see coffee mugs, mouse pads, pens, bumper stickers. They even have Defenders Dialogue bumper stickers. They're cheap, and your patronage goes to support the network. It supports this show directly, as well as all the other shows on the network. Chris, can you give us a hearty Excelsior to send us home?
Brian, again, I want to say to you, a happy birthday, Excelsior, true believers.
We'll see you next time, folks.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it.
God damn it.
I'd be going down on myself?
Shit.
Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya,
and Junior
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows.
Three guys with beards.
Jim Moore,
Jonathan Maybury, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast, on
Brian Keene of The Horror Show, Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilio of The Mando Method.
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans.
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith.
John Urban, sick of ink stains.
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.